decisions we're about to make, we don't want to go back to that miserable 18 months ago. We need to find some new way to manage. What we need is prudence, not panic. And that's what we're going to address today. This was a great quote. I know Dr. Podell is going to put up the Atlantic article quote of this, but this brilliant doctor said, "We try so hard to shield our kids from danger because that's our fundamental instinct. Tolerating risk for our kids is hard, but necessary in our parenting. This pandemic has given us daily exercise in our vulnerability. But as with fear, risk cannot be eliminated, and it can only be mitigated. Health comes from allowing fear to protect us from dying, but not allow fear preventing us from living." It's brilliant. It's from Lucy McBride from the Atlantic article, "Fear of COVID-19 in Kids is Getting Ahead of the Data." We really need to get ahead of this and not be so scared. We know how to do this. Precious reality is that it's an impossible task to eradicate dangers. We need to learn how to tolerate risks. Fear needs not to race ahead of the data, and we have all learned over the last year the difficulty and the importance to await the prudent data. So tonight and every Monday, we're going to give you science with real-world practicality. We're going to do it tonight with useful nuggets and tips and guides, both medical stuff and psycho-emotional stuff, all of which is so important as we start the school year. So welcome.
Sherry?
Yeah.
I got my third booster today.
We'll talk about boosters later because you are immune compromised and you're part
Correct.
of that group, and that's why. So don't all run out and do it, but when you're part of the group, yep, that's part of the medical nugget. Congratulations, you feel great.
I'm only saying it makes me feel better.
Well, it's supposed to, for good reason, and we'll talk about that. David has slides.
What's that?
Okay, I'm unmuted here. All right, so what I'm going to do, and as always, we have our chat, but as Dr. Pollack mentioned, we are going to be focusing on the presentation, which will have a lot of the information because it's kind of run through a lot of the questions that were in the past, and so just kind of listen to the presentation and focus on that, and you may your question may be answered. Also, here we go. Here, I'm going to share my screen, and then also we'd like to welcome our mental health professionals, parenting specialists, and physicians who are on. We have Betsy Brown-Braun, Marissa Gold, our parenting specialists. We have, who else I saw?
Lisa Spiegel's on, a psychologist. Jennifer Podell, a psychologist, is on. We have Dr. Nancy Zimbel on.
Yeah.
My screen moved away.
Lisa Weiner is on as well. And so we got a whole...
We got Shelley Siegel on.
Yeah, great. And so we got a whole host of people to answer questions. We'll talk to the slides as they come up. So here we go. Share screen.
And if our physicians also and our psychologists and our parenting specialists want to help narrate these, by the way, these nuggets came from Jenny Podell's idea to just distill down our best information, as well as the actual content is from our psychologist, and they're going to speak up and narrate their part. So not to worry. You'll know when you see your words, kids.
All right, so here we are with the first beginning the Zoom. It's like we never really explained why the Brady Bunch had access to Zoom in the 1970s. We really wondered how that occurred. That's our first nugget. But anyway, we're going to be talking about COVID-19 by the numbers. We're going to review the statistics like we have been every week, looking at the country, California, and then Los Angeles. And then we're going to talk about the top 10 medical tips to know, pandemic edition, and then the top mental health tips to know, pandemic edition. And these were just some recommendations from our pediatricians and our mental health specialists and parenting specialists to help you through this. And of all the things that I learned in grade school, trying to avoid cooties was the last one I'd expect to use later in life. All right, so when we look at the statistics, we look through the country and we see the wave kind of going up. And this was the January wave, which hit us pretty hard. And so this is going up. The community transmission across the United States is high, which everybody knows. There are a few spots where it's a little bit lower, but most of it's in the red zone. And when we look at the numbers, we see the dark blue are the high concentration of numbers, but this doesn't tell the whole story, because in Los Angeles, we have a really concentrated or a large population. And when you do it cases per 100,000, we are kind of relatively lower. So we're, light blue, green, whereas there's some areas that are more, dark blue, which is a higher number of cases per 100,000 population. And then when we look at children, I know there's been a lot in the news this last week about the increase in hospitalization of children. And indeed, they are having a significant increase in cases. And these are the latest data from the American Academy of Pediatrics and Children's Hospital Association, where they're looking at on the 12th there. And then, we see the relative cases. And on this, you're seeing the percentage of the whole. So the dark blue is the kids and the light blue is everybody, or, the adults. And I think the numbers are about 14.4% of the cases are kids, or 15% of the cases are kids, somewhere around that area. So it's not, obviously not a huge number, but it is still a significant number. And when you look at the raw data, it kind of scares us in the news that, the numbers are going up for kids and they're not vaccinated, but they tend to do better. And we want to emphasize that. They are at low risk, but they are not at no risk. But these numbers should give some comfort to some parents, especially if they are doing the mitigating precautions and vaccinations. So you look at here, this is summary of hospitalization through the August 12th cumulative data. And it looks like the percent of children comprising hospitalizations is 2.3%. And the hospitalization rate of kids is about 1% of kids who get hospitalized. And then deaths are also a very small portion. There have been 378 deaths from COVID in kids, which is 0.07% of the total deaths, and 0.01% of children getting COVID result in a death, which is good. We don't want to see those numbers go up. When we look at California, we see the total numbers here. The number of cases that were today, August 16th, 11,437, which is a little bit higher. Deaths a little bit higher, but you say, there's 11 deaths. Every death is important. But as far as the total numbers, if you look at 64,000, there are only 11 deaths today. God forbid there should be more, but hopefully it will plateau. And the test positivity rate, we're doing a lot more testing to verify contracting the virus, and the test positivity rate has gone down a little bit to 6.1%, which is encouraging. And looking at hospitalizations or confirmed cases in California, here you can just see this nice curve, and there is a little bit bump, not nearly what it was in January. Deaths are still pretty low, which is great, not like it was in January. And I think that that's a testament to vaccination, because the numbers are going up in general. And then the number of hospitalizations is going up, not where it was obviously in January, but it is increasing. And the test positivity rate kind of took a little bit of a bump down because we're doing a lot more testing. And when we go to LA County, we see the number of people testing is going up, and the average test positivity rate is down just a little bit, 4.73, which is great because I think it peaked up a little bit higher in the 6, almost 7 range. So it's coming down. The deaths are increased to about 8 deaths in LA County, and the hospitalizations are increasing steadily, but the deaths aren't as significant as they were in the January period of time. So now we're moving to the medical tips to know, top 10 medical tips to know, pandemic edition. And we want to invite the pediatricians who are on to comment on these slides as well. They're kind of to trigger conversation. And then after this, we followed by their mental health slides. And we will start off here. So number 10. Say viruses mutate.
Number 10.
Yes, number 10.
All right. So I don't think this is any new information for any of us. You know, viruses mutate. That's why all of a sudden the conversation's on Delta. Last week, there was a question about should we get nervous about these other mutations, Epsilon and Lambda, somebody asked about. Good news, our country is red hot, all Delta all the time. So, that doesn't allow other viruses to be there, but mutations happen when viruses have the opportunity to replicate. And so the more people who are vaccinated or already immune because they got sick, the less mutation we're going to experience. We know a way to exit this pandemic phase is going to be getting vaccinated. The cost of getting infected is great. Much better to get vaccinated. 1, 2, and maybe 3. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We've learned a lot. Next slide. And I don't see any of the other, I think Nancy's on. Nancy, at any point, although you have a beautiful ceiling, Nancy, and great curly hair from the beach. Anytime you want to read any of these slides, that's great. If any of the other doctors are on, they could too. So next slide, number 9. We have learned a lot. So unlike last year when we were frightened and we didn't know what was going on, we know a lot. You can hold strong to the fact that this is a virus, Delta, like all the rest of the COVID viruses, maybe with a little switch up. But the public health mitigation layers that we have refined, we've talked about it every week. You can even switch to the next one on Swiss cheese if you want. This is the public health mitigation things that we do that help protect us. Each layer is important. Masking. And last week we talked about teach your kids how to mask. You can look up a resource on healthychildren.org, and they have videos of how to mask and what masks work well. But we know masks are helpful, and don't look at and buy into any of that false mythology that people are boggling our social medias with, saying that masks make you breathe in carbon dioxide, because our surgeons work all day and all night in these things. And look at how wonderful David Epstein is. And he's 12 hours a day in a tight N95 that makes crinkles on his nose, and he's not hypoxic. So masking works, certain kind of masking, good masking, not ones with holes and that leak. Distancing works. That's another layer of Swiss cheese. Well-ventilated spaces. So outdoors better than indoors, but our schools have good ventilation systems and windows open, and perhaps even some distance. Hand hygiene. Don't pick your nose, don't touch your face, and vaccinate. Contact tracing and testing need to be part of your school's mitigation strategies that we know are going to keep them safe until they can also, our kids under 12 can also go ahead and get their vaccine. Next. The next is a funny one, but when people tell you that things are more uncomfortable, things that masks are uncomfortable, so are a lot of other things. Not pretty, I'm not going to read it. Grow up, be decent, and wear a damn mask. Next.
So
number 8. I still don't see anybody jumping in. What happened to Ken?
Oh, he's out tonight. He told me, he's texted me, but
no.
Yeah.
So the Delta variant. We know that the Delta variant is more contagious. It does spread quicker and easier. It's 55% more transmissible. We know that. It's not different in its effects of its illness from what we've experienced. And we know from the mRNA samples up a nose that it has 1,000 times more mRNA, more germs than the Alpha variant. So it can spread quicker. That's its secret mojo. In a household, 53% of your household are going to get it if somebody brings it home. Right now, Delta does make up most and all of the COVID disease in America, but vaccines are doing what they were made to do. Those who are vaccinated, for the most part, are not getting hospitalizably sick, nor are they dying. Although there are some breakthroughs, we know it, people are talking about it, your friends might have gotten it. The illnesses are milder and shorter, unless somebody has an underlying condition for which Betsy has listened to the CDC and gone ahead with an immune condition to go ahead and get her third booster, because people with immune deficiencies just don't make a strong enough response to the first two. They need 3 in their series. Vaccines work. We do know, we have been hearing that the vaccines work a little bit less to protect us against just getting some symptoms. Now 73% collectively rather than in the high 80s. But come on, these vaccines do protect, all of them across the board, including Johnson & Johnson, do protect 100% against dying and against severe hospitalization. What shots do that? I mean, this is such a successful vaccine. So they're working very well. I know people were talking about, are they going to change up the vaccine boosters so that it's better against certain different strains? Right now, they found they do not need to change it in order to protect against Delta. It's working just fine. It's the unvaccinated. If all those heat maps and all those graphs that David showed you isn't convincing enough, it's the unvaccinated that are becoming sick, and they're the ones that are in the hospital. What we need to know about Delta is, as you make your decisions for what to do and family choices, what you considered risky in your prior phases of the pandemic, whether it was a trip to Trader Joe's or to some outdoor Lollapalooza, it's riskier now. By the way, Sturgis, you can flip to the next slide. Sturgis has come up with, that's the place where they have the motorcycle racing, right? They just got a 330% bump in case rate. Thank you, Sturgis.
Yeah.
David, it's facts and figures. I don't know facts and figures.
That's okay. That's okay. So this is, from the CDC website, as they're following these, the variants here. This is basically what Sherry was referring to as far as the variant, the Delta variant. And so the Delta variant is this area here, the dark orange, red, and it's kind of taken over basically this big bar here, and a variant of the Delta variant of the variant. So so basically this huge bar, and this is as of August 7th, and you can see the more like a pictorial across the United States. Basically everything is orange. Or dark orange, so the predominant variant is the Delta variant in the United States right now. So one of
good news. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so one of the things is, the symptoms may be mild, and what we're seeing in our, especially with kids, they are having mild disease. In our doctor chat that we're texting each other, we do have the occasional child that gets admitted to the hospital for respiratory issues. And we don't have updated statistics from Dr. Alan Nager, who's the chief of emergency medicine at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. But the last conversation we had said that they're seeing, larger numbers, but not as many hospitalizations, which is good. That's what we want to, avoid. We want to, I think, Sherry, you mentioned this at one point, we want to defang the virus. So I don't know if it was you, but I think I remember you saying something like that. And so with the vaccine, and as more people get either vaccinated or survive the illness, the virus doesn't have as many places to go, and the vaccination kind of defangs the virus, and that it makes it a little less less harmful to those who get it. But some people, symptoms may be mild. Most people have mild symptoms, and need to be aware that if they get some symptoms, they should get tested and they should quarantine. And here's a list of possible symptoms, of which, we've seen like a third, or maybe even a little bit more, that people may actually be contagious, but they have no symptoms. And, this may be especially true with the people who are vaccinated. I was listening to TWIV. I know, Sherry, you're a fan of TWIV, which is a nice podcast about, some virologists getting together and chatting. And one of the things that they said about the vaccine is that if everybody is vaccinated, like every single person in the United States is vaccinated, that you are going to have cases of COVID, and they will be considered breakthrough cases. So as more people are getting vaccinated, we're going to hear about more cases of breakthrough COVID. But the idea is that the symptoms are going to be much less severe. There is some thought, and I think we presented last week, that there can be as much virus in the nose of a vaccinated person as an unvaccinated person. And so that's why the CDC proposed that people who are vaccinated wear masks as well in indoor and high risk areas, just to mitigate any passing of virus that they may have that they don't know that they have. Vaccines are meant to stop people from dying and getting hospitalized, but people still can get the virus and still be contagious. But here's a list of the symptoms that you can see, and
so these are really so mild. We don't need to be so concerned and so afraid about the pandemic proportions in our life. These are mild. We've had these symptoms before, but I guess the scary part is people usually don't pay attention to that. They go to school anyway. They go about their day anyway. This is the time for the next month or two when the Delta is really peaking, and we want to do our part without going into lockdown to stem the spread. So if you have a mild allergy thing or scratchy throat, it's easy now. Get tested. If you're positive, you stay inside. Now, somebody asked about this whole quarantine isolation issue. CDC.gov under COVID-19 has more information about quarantine and isolation, and it is confusing. If you've been vaccinated, your requirement to quarantine away from other people, if you have a known exposure, is changed. I think it's going to keep changing, so I don't want to make it more confusing, but somebody said if you're on a bus and you're vaccinated and you're a bunch of kids and you come home. So anytime you go traveling, if you've been vaccinated and you think that you were sitting in front of somebody who's been coughing all over you, you think there's a bona fide chance, by day 3 to 5, if you're vaccinated, you should take a test. And if you want to take a test on day 5 to 7, that's okay too. That's going to be your best bet to catch if you have it, so that you know that you are going to stay away. If you have COVID, you isolate 10 days. But next slide.
Okay.
We certainly want to make sure that even though it seems confusing, isolation and quarantine, your doctors, we health people will talk you through it, but do your best. And even if you have kids you want to send to daycare anyway, do your best to get them tested to make sure they're not spreading it. Because as we said, the symptoms are mild. Yeah. Not most people, 99%, 97%, whatever the big number is, they're not getting super sick from COVID. But we don't have to think of death and hospitalization as what to avoid. There still are some other bad outcomes of the coronavirus. So something you're going to hear about, we've talked about the long haul syndrome. That's post-acute COVID PAX, they're calling it. Post-acute COVID syndrome. That's when your symptoms last a month, 2 months, 3 months. And they're saying maybe even in England, they're doing the studies, even up to 5%. Somewhere they're saying up to 14% of young people are having symptoms a month and 2 months after being sick. And that could be brain fog, dizziness, those sorts of things. Adults, up to 20, 30%, they think might be having these long haul syndromes. The kids, they get this other thing that's very scary, but incredibly rare, and that's the multi-system inflammatory syndrome. And we've talked about it before, and we can talk again, but that's why we got to be careful. Delta, because of its contagiousness, is reproducing in tremendous numbers, mostly in unvaccinated people. And as David said, as the volume of people goes up, so will those of us who've been vaccinated who also might get exposed and might carry it. And the problem being that the healthcare systems are going to have to be overused and get stressed. And that's what's happening. We didn't mean to scare you last week, but in Texas, in Florida, the hospitals and the pediatric hospitals are full to the brim.
Yeah. And
but
then,
not here.
Yeah. And then, as far as we're the vaccinations have been very protective. And so we don't know if there is an issue with long haul syndrome or long COVID in people who've had vaccination or MIS-C or things like that. But all we can do is vaccinate and protect ourselves. These numbers here are from the Kaiser Family Foundation. They do a lot of research. And basically, the summary of it, here's cases on the far left, hospitalizations in the middle, and deaths on the far right. And it compares those who are fully vaccinated in green, and you see very small numbers, versus the overall cases amongst people who are not fully vaccinated. And so it's a very good pictorial or example of showing that vaccines.
And so we'll make it real quick.
Vaccines work. And
right. They work. How beautiful. Yeah. Unvaccinated people are all that orange.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a question about MIS-C. A small fraction of kids get it. About 4,400 kids have gotten MIS-C, usually happening a number of weeks after the infection. It could be a significant infection, or it could be a mild infection. It's just something to keep in mind. Most kids do well, and only 37 kids died. Although it's still 37 kids, but considering how many got it, I think it's still a good recovery for children. So, and we're working through masks work. Number 5, it's about fit and filtration. As Dr. Pollack mentioned, healthychildren.org has a nice masking, good masking information. And then to those who are still wearing their mask below the nose, it's been over this is meme's a little old, so it's been over a year, and it takes less time to potty train a toddler. So wear your mask properly. School is good for kids. There's still recommendation that kids should go to school, and the mitigation strategies work. The previous studies and evaluations have shown that kids are getting sick more outside of school than actually in school. So if you're doing the proper mitigation strategies, it is safe. And the American Academy of Pediatrics does support going to school, feeling that the downsides of not going to school outweigh the risks of going to school. So the fact is that the benefits of going to school outweigh the risks of not going to school. So people are going back to school. And then number 3, vaccines are safe, effective, and important for pregnant women, as are kids and everybody else. That's something that's coming out in the news. And Sherry, do you have any information on that one?
Yeah, just last Friday, the CDC and the FDA made it very clear in their recommendations. If you're pregnant during any time of your pregnancy, it's good and it's fine to get vaccinated. It actually does provide babies passive immunity and protection, and it helps moms not get COVID. COVID is far worse an illness to have, and they've shown that it's been safe in pregnancy. And then the other group, the Betsy group, the next slide.
Oh, sorry. It's good.
Sorry.
I was going to show this slide. People want to know about how the vaccine fares against the Delta variant. And so what you're looking at here, and this is a good website also, this is the New England Journal of Medicine. and newenglandjournalmedicine.org/COVID-vaccine/FAQ, FAQ. The idea behind this is they have a lot of good information for a lot of questions that you're answering or thinking about. And they have a nice pictorial on this where they're looking at the information about the vaccine, the mRNA, the Pfizer vaccine. You can see on the first track there, and red is the alpha variant. So that's how effective it is against symptomatic disease. And then 75% for the beta. Delta is 88%, although there may be some more recent information that it may be a little bit lower, but still effective. And then it goes through the Moderna. You can see the bars there, and then the AstraZeneca, which is not here, the J&J, which is here. But the numbers, the efficacy is.
All right, so David, your computer is slowing you down a bit.
Okay, sorry. Is it better?
I'm going to take over a little bit because it's slowing down. There was a question about these vaccines. Somebody wanted to know about kids, what's going to go on. So it is part of our next slide as well, that the recommendations to keep up to date. David mentioned that New England Journal of Medicine as a good site. The Infectious Disease Society of America keeps you updated on that, as well as the White House COVID briefing that happens probably twice a week. But keep up to date on the changes to recommendations. Coming September, the Pfizer is going for their full approval. We'll see if they make it. They should. Following them will be Moderna. In September, because the Pfizer data is slotted to be finished for children in the 5 to 11-year-old study, the data will be evaluated by all the science committees, and if it's scientifically safe and truly effective as they think it will, the 5 to 11-year-olds will likely be made for recommendation somewhere between September and November. Because of the study data, the 2-year-old to 5-year-old data will be completed supposedly in the October timeframe, and then the 6-month-old to 2-year-old data will be completed and put up for evaluation in the December time zone. So certainly by early next year, we'll be able to vaccinate everybody, and the pregnant mommies, go ahead and vaccinate your own kids, your babies, by getting a vaccine while you're pregnant. Compromised people in your home do still need extra protection, especially now. What was risky before the Delta is riskier now. So immune-compromised people need cocooning. You can do that by having everybody around them be vaccinated, but the FDA just announced on Friday that certain types of immune compromise, and there's a list of what those are, can get their third vaccines at this point. And it has to do with medications or immune compromising medications, high doses of steroids, people with organ transplants, other kinds of cancers on chemotherapy, and certain highly immune compromised people. But the run-of-the-mill of us who are just freaked out, we don't count yet. Next slide.
And then number one nugget from the medical community is that this too will end. We will get through this. It's just going to take time, and we just have to take the proper precautions and get vaccinated. With that, we're shifting gears to our mental health specialist.
And Marissa Gold, Betsy Brown, Jennifer Podell are going to and Lisa are going to recognize your words in these slides. So take it away. This is your words.
Okay, here we go. First slide, or number 10, create calm amidst the chaos. Please feel free to discuss this if you'd like to jump on. You can unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Tell. Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So this is really all about finding consistent ways to help yourselves, the parents, the adults in the room, and your kids figure out that, create calm moments throughout the day and to actually even potentially schedule them in. And things like, and I'm actually doing this even myself with some of my friends, will text to each other, like, what are your 3 gratefuls for the day, right? And you can do that with your kids. You can do it at dinner. You can do it in the morning. Scheduling chores, quiet moments, reading time. You can create a calm corner. This, by the way, is absolutely not a timeout corner. I actually like to think of it as a time in, or just a calm corner where you can go and sit and you can journal, you can read, you can listen to music. You can create a corner in the home. You can do it in your children's rooms, wherever you want. Getting outside, whether you're walking, you're hiking, you're bike riding, swimming, if you have a pool that's warm or you're refreshing. There are, a lot of ways that you can actually really create calm for you and your children. And I think that right now, because there is so much chaos and so much that is changing daily, I think that is what is actually scary for our kids and creates anxiety for our kids, the unknowns and the what ifs, and the fact that we as the parents and even the therapists and the pediatricians and the teachers, like, no one can say definitively for the foreseeable future that this is how something is going to be. And so that unknown, living in the unknown, that's really what creates so much chaos and anxiousness for adults and kids alike. So I think if we intentionally create calm moments for ourselves and for our children, and we're consistent with those calm moments, it can actually really help. And we can put those calm moments into our routine. And doing that actually really helps. Creating routine really, really helps our children. So especially when our kids are feeling like there's so much routine upheaval every day. That's that. Number 9, this is to be flexible and patient. So this is just a reminder that, and I want to say about all of this with the being flexible and finding patience and all this stuff. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog coughing in the background. She's very old and coughing at the moment.
Dogs can't get COVID and can't give it to you. It's okay.
This is not COVID. She has like respiratory and heart issues. It's not. I've actually had her checked twice, but she's on lots of medicine. But if you can hear some coughing in the background, that's my 17-year-old dog. So what I was going to say with the creating calm and flexibility and patience and putting all these things into your routine, there are some really incredible apps that you can use as parents, as teachers, for your kids, for younger kids, for older kids. I have different apps that I use with the young kids that I work with versus the teenagers that I work with, but they're all really great. There are things that can be set as reminders. So you, even as the parent, you don't have to remind your kids to do certain things because apps on their smart devices will actually do that for them. And then you can, also have apps set that will turn off the technology, which will also really help them. So as far as being flexible and patient, you can see here we've got deep breaths. And I don't know, is there more stuff that you want to put up on this slide, David, or do you want me just to talk to it?
We cover it in the following one, so we know what. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll go to the next slide here then. This is a
unless
great
any of the other parenting specialists or psychologists want to jump in.
This is great.
Oh.
That is great.
Taking a deep breath. All right, and there've been a lot of questions. I think there was mention about doing outdoor activities more often and being outside. And this is a slide we keep on using. And this is, I think you said it's my neighborhood epidemiologist. And they have some good information on what are safe activities and what are not so safe activities. And the ones that are outside are definitely, more safe than the ones that are inside or when you're around crowds. But did you guys want to speak to outdoor activities as far as mental health and such, mental well-being?
There are people asking questions about get-togethers and gatherings, and certainly whether it's at school in the hallways, the bathrooms, the lunch areas, or if it's with upcoming holidays that are going to require families and not so great outlaws in the families to sort of bombard us with the fear of our rules don't equal their rules. Mental health people, how do we navigate that? We are high risk people, so we're gonna stay on the green in choosing our activities, but we have family who don't care so much, or we are in school and we want to feel good about ourselves and make friends, but we don't know how we can socialize in a way that makes us feel good and honors the boundaries that we've chosen to live with.
Sherry, that speaks right to Ruby and several of us.
I'm sitting here reading the quotes. That's why I'm reading the chats. I want you guys to address this.
So, well, everyone has had something wonderful to say to Ruby, and I say wonderful because we all feel so proud and supportive of her in her bravery and her ability to speak up. But this very issue of how do you do what you do amidst people who don't do what you do? And this is actually a basic life question. It's going to happen many times over with things far more serious and things far less serious. In terms of helping our children to understand what our choices are, every family gets to make his or her own choice, its own choice about what they want to do. And I am choosing I'm choosing only to do these activities because I know I am keeping myself and my family safe. Insofar as what we tell our kids to do at school today, I watched an interview for the first day at school at some school, and the interviewer was talking to a little girl who said, I did just what my mommy said. My mommy said, don't get too close to people. And, she went through this list of things she was supposed to do. And she felt pretty good about it. And this kid was probably 5 or 6. For Ruby, who's in high school, it's much harder to navigate a social world and do what you believe and keep yourself safe and still feel okay socially. None of us really can say what you should do, except we are all saying how impressed we are that someone like Ruby or someone is able to take a stand, supporting and doing what she believes. What else can we say? You've got to do the best you can do.
And just to highlight it, we adults go through this, whether it's in our practices, whether we've chosen to be doing telehealth visits, telepsychology visits, or being in person, whether we've chosen to attend some family wedding, or as somebody mentioned, the high holiday coming up and they're going to be eating. So I do think that it is a marker of our strength to wear our mask and wear it proud and know that we're doing it right. If they're choosing not to, you can just keep your 6-foot distance. So that leads us to the question people have been asking about, well, what about this masking outdoors? At this point, if you've got a lot of space in what you're doing, you don't have to be masked outdoors. But if you are in a tight situation, Dodger Stadium, and you're shoulder to shoulder, I know that they initially had talked about you wear your mask if you're in a place that has more than 100,000 people outdoors. But you know what? You don't know who's sitting next to you and where they've been. And at this point with Delta, this is the time to wear your mask and wear it proud. And look up on the healthychildren.org website what that mask should be like. What makes it safe. And I think what did we do? We created calm. We're going to put our own oxygen mask on. Just was saying that.
Yeah. Please feel free to jump in, our mental health specialists and parenting specialists.
Well, I mean, we also have been saying this for weeks. I can certainly support it. Everybody says this. You cannot be the mom you want to be, the dad you want to be, the caregiver you want to be if you are overcome with anxiety or concern or germs. You've got to make sure you're taking care of yourself so you are available to your children. And you parents know that better than anyone. You know how you feel when you've had a good night's sleep and you've eaten, and you know how you felt the night before when you were exhausted and starving. So take very good care of yourselves. And I just want to say, because you said mask in terms of oxygen mask, I think it's really important for parents modeling doing the same thing. You sure can't point at your kid and say, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, and not do it yourself, even if you've been vaccinated. I think it's really important to model doing the taking care of yourself so that your child will do it too.
I agree with you, Betsy. Totally.
Sorry.
Sorry, Lana.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to add, when we're talking about anxiety and reintegrating, just a friendly reminder for parents, take things slow. Just be mindful of how you feel, and, you don't have to experience everything all at once. And I think we're seeing that with our kids too, where, our kids are anxious about getting back into the role of things. And just start by going out a little bit at a time, and just remind yourself, just take things slow. We don't have to jump right in.
I'd like to address, I just saw Odette Najarian's question. It's a great question. And because I'm the mental health counselor at a high school of 500 kids, it's definitely relevant. And Ruby also addressed it. The tragic thing that Ruby stated was that she didn't feel supported by the teacher to whom she sought help, or from whom she sought help. There has to be this united front with the school personnel, whether it be maintenance people, staff, office people, teachers, assistants, it doesn't matter. Everybody needs to be on the same page. And the monitoring, like I put in the chat, of the hallways and the bathrooms in particular is the big challenge, especially, and I'm going to sound like an old fart, but I'm going to take it anyway. Girls like to congregate in the bathroom and look at their makeup together and brush each other's hair. And I don't care how old we get, but that's still a thing. Because I purposely use the students' bathrooms, and they just keep doing their thing, but I see it. And that's when a lot of the masks come off. And then they very slowly maybe put them back on. So everybody needs to be on board, recommending the same thing, showing as a group how to wear them. It sounds ridiculous at this point, but I was at the gym this morning and I saw so many people with it under their nose. It drove me batty.
And people think that they can wear it like that and it's okay. They got used to it. I don't know where that permission came from. I show those funny videos of, the whatever. It is our job, all of us, to educate other people. And it's okay to tell other people. I do it every day in my office. It's frightening.
There's my inner voice that says, do you really think that's doing what you wanted to do? But then I have to monitor myself and say, I would really love it if you would put that over your nose. And I sort of sound as apologetic as I can, but I get my point across because I don't want to piss somebody off, but I also want it to be done correctly. So in schools, it's so important for everybody to be on the same page about that. But the question about where to sit when the masks comes off to eat, that should be something that can be addressed by the administration at the commencement of the school year. Because if there are people who, I can count at our school right off the top of my head, 5 people who have either active cancer in the family, or a mother waiting for a liver transplant, or someone in chemo for brain cancer. These are kids who really, really want to come to school and are, but I'm also very aware that they want to be as careful as possible being around their peers. They're making that risk choice, Sherry, that you were talking about, because they were isolated all last year, these 5 kids. They never went anywhere because of their family's health. But there needs to be a set aside place where if kids want to sit off to the side, tables outside, not feeling like they can be that 6 to 8 feet from the next person, but still being able to talk while they're eating. That's the job to me of the school, to be put to be made aware that that student really needs that. And even if there is no specific reason, it doesn't matter. We all have our different comfort levels, and the numbers are the numbers now. And Delta, we know, of course, is much more contagious and has a higher viral load. So it's not a ridiculous request to make.
And we're here to support you as parents and kids. A group of us are manifesto meisters. We would love to come out to your school and do a panel of education for your teachers, for the people in charge, or for the students. And then there's some great videos also that teachers and students all could be learning. And you parents can also be empowered to pinch that thing over your nose and keep it up over your nose. So that's great for putting on your oxygen mask first. We got through that one. Next slide, David. I'm looking at the time and we got like more.
Sorry. We're all about
Number 6.
anxiety in this one, and maybe this will encompass a lot of probably the remaining things, but do you guys want to speak to this? Anxiety. Lisa, are you still on? Lisa Weiner?
I am definitely on. And the biggest thing that comes to my mind, and I know Betsy, Marissa, Jennifer, everybody backs me up on this. You are being watched by your children all the time. Whether we like it or not, we are modeling how to behave all the time, whether we're parents, teachers, etc. Even if you know that you drive them crazy, they are still watching you, which means that whatever you need to do to lower your anxiety, or as this says, watch your leaking anxiety, you have to put yourself in check and do what feels right to you so that you can model what it is that's worth worrying about and what you actually have control over. That's
well,
really,
Lisa, you said something really important right there, which was, you can overleak and you can underleak.
Yes.
You didn't say that, but that's what I'm interpreting what you're saying. This
Exactly.
leakage stuff is all comes from me because, of course, as a senior citizen, we all leak. So whatever. But I know, TMI. But what I want to say is sometimes we have to be very careful about what we leak. But your kids actually need leakage about your concern, not your anxiety. Our kids need us to stay resolute about what we believe and what we're doing. But they don't need us to leak our anxiety and our own fears. They need you to be the parent. And it is true that our kids often, especially the little ones, don't worry as much as we worry. And especially things don't bother them that bother us. And so alternatively, they need it to bother us because we're the ones that kind of keep them on the straight and narrow. We're the one that we kind of herd them back. But, I think, as I said, in our family, we is really important to say to kids, I know that when you go to Samantha's house, they don't wear masks or they don't feel that way, but we feel very strongly about it in our family. That's not leaking anxiety, that's leaking boundaries, which I think are important. So I wanted to support and differentiate what you were saying. Because we don't want them to get our anxiety, but we do want them to know we are there. We want to leak that.
Absolutely.
I think the other part with school starting too is be prepared that anxiety might not look like what you think it is. So kids, a lot of kids started back today, and you may see kids unraveling and having more kind of temper tantrums or just being irritable. And then if you kind of sit down and actually talk with them, they might be worried and stressed about things. So I think it's really a balance, like everyone said, where we don't want to ooze and leak our worries out on everyone. But we also don't want to dismiss theirs because they've been through a lot. We have too. But for a lot of kids, they're, returning back for the first time in a long time. And this is this is a big deal. And, you know, for kids, little things might set them off, or they just might be really unkind to the parents at home. And so I think it's just a level of patience for all of us, that this is hard. And as Dr. Zimble loves to say, we can do hard things. So this is hard, and it's okay that it's hard, but we want to be there. It's that balance, but we're human. And this is a really hard time for all of us.
You know, I want to add one thing to that, Jen, that you made me think of, which is this. For many kids, like my granddaughter, camp just ended on Friday. Today is Monday. Camp just ended. They went through the whole summer with camp, with COVID protocols, wearing masks, having fun, and they were all used to it. And there wasn't there was not an uptick in fear or taking care of yourself or concern. And now they're back in school, and it's almost like they have to start it all over again, having been on this path that was, okay, we got this, we did it. But now they go back to school, and the schools are nervous, and the teachers are nervous, and the administrators are nervous, and they have to deal with us nervous parents. So I feel that the kids are actually being exposed really to a whole different feeling and fever about this than they might have had all summer long. So that's another thing that may be causing that change in behavior, and, you know, maybe nighttime enuresis, or having trouble going to sleep, or not eating, or fighting, or picking on the sibling, or any number of things that let us know all is not well.
Good points. And I think these are extremely important for the families to hear. There's still more slides, and we want to go through them because they're all important points. But this is a nice one. It said, my anxieties have anxiety. So there's a lot of anxiety. And I think you guys may have mentioned this or alluded to this. I think, Betsy, this was yours. It's, don't downplay your child's feelings. Don't minimize them. Allow them to feel during this difficult time. Validate and acknowledge. Children are trying to express themselves in different ways, and that's important. We have to validate and acknowledge them. And this is an important part. And I think, Betsy, you may have mentioned that this may be yours. You want to speak to this because I think this is important.
Well, it's so easy to forget both of these comments, which is why I put it up, which is, in all of this, our kids still need alone time with you, where you're not talking about COVID or school or anything. They just need to be alone with you and to feel your attachment and their significance to you. And just without siblings or friends or anything else, they need to be with you. Likewise, our teens, they still need their private time. I can't tell you how many people, I'm sure that, Marissa, with your teens, you have heard this from the parents, my mom just wants me to go be with them. I don't want to be with them at dinner. I just want my time. Let your kids have their life. Give them their privacy. Give them their alone time. We want a semblance of normalcy for them, and teens wanting alone time in their caves is well within what's normal for kids this age. But with all this stuff that's going, we need regularity, but we need to honor who our kids are and what they need.
Perfect. And, we've learned a lot this year, and we have to remember how much we learned. We know how to keep ourselves safe. And if something feels unsafe, ask questions. And I think that's why, we have this venue for everybody. And we just have to remember what we've done. We've been doing this for a year and a half, and we can keep doing this. And then Dr. Pradell had mentioned, well, this is a question here. This is a nice little meme you guys can read. It says basically, your question is it safe to be on this thing? It means something different today than it did a year ago. So a lot of things have changed. But Dr. Bedell had referred to this statement of Dr. Zimble's, which is something that's kind of like our mantra. And, we can do hard things. And I think also Dr. Bedell, I don't want to speak for you. If you want to chime in, feel free.
No, I mean, I think it says it for itself. It's this, we kind of are in this whiplash. Like we've gone on this, I think one of the first talks was like the carousel, COVID carousel or something. Like we've been going around and around. We got off the carousel and then we kind of got whiplash because we hopped back on. And so I think this is the year of the pivot, the year of being flexible, where it does feel like Groundhog's Day. And sometimes things feel better and sometimes it feels worse. But we could do this, and there are phenomenal resources. There's, the group, there's tons, I'm sure people have seen, on social media, and there's a ton of resources and support. And so we can do this. We will ride this wave. We will ride this, intense period. And we know what to do to keep ourselves safe. We just have to remember to do it and to help those around us do it.
Excellent. And then finally, as a closing slide, we want to put this in perspective. And 20 years from now, people will not ask the children of 2020 if they caught up with their studies. They will not ask them what grades they made despite the year off school. They will ask them with wonder what it was like. They will ask them, how did you cope? How did you feel? What do you remember of those days? They will listen in awe to the tales of clapping on doorsteps for the medical workers. They will sit open mouthed to hear of daily walks being the only life we saw and how much we missed human contact and gatherings. They will be amazed to know about empty supermarkets, online concerts, birthdays spent on screen, and a life lived inside. They will listen, they will sit back with amazement and say, wow, you went through so much. So think about what you would like your children to take away from this whole year and more than a year. Tell them they are not behind and tell them they are not missing out. We want to thank you guys so much for being part of our community and doing all the things that they're doing. The parents, the special parenting specialists, mental health specialists, pediatricians. This has been extremely difficult time. I know that we went over on our time here, but I think all these things had to be said. And I just want to thank everybody for being here and being part of our community. That's the most important thing. That's what will get us through all this.